Good evening from New York. This is Friday, October 6th, 32 days until the 2006 midterm elections. The good news for the Republican Party, no one is talking about Bob Woodward's book at the moment. The bad news, with little more than 4 weeks to go till Election Day, the Mark Foley sex scandal has fractured the GOP, putting the Democrats within striking distance of taking back the Senate, while quite possibly causing the Republican Speaker of the House to lose his mind. Our fifth story on the countdown, like a pendulum, a large pendulum, Dennis Hastert swinging back to blaming the Democrats for the mess that happened on his watch, calling the disclosure that a Republican congressman was at minimum sending sexually explicit instant messages to teenage boys a October surprise orchestrated by the opposition. Fellow Republicans yesterday urging the Speaker not to repeat the George Soros defense. They told the Chicago Tribune it was, quote, incredibly inept. Speaker Hastert, however, ignoring the advice, now telling the conservative website Newsmax.com late Thursday evening that the timing of the disclosure was, quote, suspicious. Quoting again, on the last day after Foley can't get his name off the ballot and we're leaving for a national campaign and then this thing falls, it's kind of an October surprise, I guess you'd call it. Speaker Hastert adding that there's plenty of blame to spread in the media's direction. Quote, you know, the press has its own values and where it wants to be. They're feeding on this, and I don't think they have much more to talk about in Washington right now, so it's just full time. They're looking for a story for sure. Yeah, there's no war or Woodward book or anything. Speaker Hastert becoming political kryptonite as this goes along. Republican candidates in close races now canceling or postponing campaign appearances with the Illinois Republican. Much in the same way they have been deep-sixing photo ops with the commander-in-chief, which leaves the Speaker and the President free to campaign with each other. NBC News confirming tonight that President Bush will travel to Illinois next week for a public event with Speaker Hastert. For more on the Speaker's mindset and whether his claims come close to passing the proverbial smell test, I'm now to bring in our own political correspondent, David Schuster, who is in Washington. David, good evening.
Keith, good evening to you. Regardless of whether the claims are motivated by politics or by desperation, a number of false charges are being made. So let's take a closer look. Number one, did the Democrats know in advance? Republican House Speaker Dennis Hastert has told Newsmax, quote, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee was ready to go. We were told by sources that they had that information on a Thursday night before we did, or Wednesday. They were up ahead of us for a day before we ever knew it was going to happen. Hastert won't tell us how he knows this or who his sources are, but more importantly, Brian Ross of ABC News, who first broke the Foley story, said ABC sources, to the extent they had party affiliations, were Republicans, and Ross didn't share his story with the Democratic Party. And the Hill newspaper, which matched ABC's reporting early on, said their source on the Foley revelations was a Republican Hill staffer. Number two, did the Republicans work for Foley's resignation? Congressman Tom Reynolds, in charge of the National Republican Campaign Committee, said, I immediately began to work for his resignation. House Speaker Dennis Hastert said on Monday, we found out about it, asked him to resign. He did resign. He's gone. But a timeline of what happened a week ago shows Foley resigned before the Republican leadership even had an opportunity to act. And Dennis Hastert originally said, I think Foley resigned almost immediately upon the outbreak of this information. And so we really didn't have a chance to ask him to resign. Number three, what did Dennis Hastert know and when did he know it?
I, first of all, learned of this last Friday when we're about to leave Congress for the break to go out and campaign.
House Majority Leader John Boehner says he told Hastert this spring that Foley had a page problem. Congressman Tom Reynolds says he told Hastert a year ago that Foley had a page problem. And Kirk Fordham, Reynolds' former chief of staff, said he told Hastert's office about it 3 years ago. Kirk Fordham says he has now shared this information with the FBI. Keith?
David, while we have you here, let me switch gears on the scandal beat and ask you, there's been something of significance in the Abramoff investigation today that speaks to the Republican lobbyists' ties to the White House?
That's right. Susan Ralston, who was the top aide to Karl Rove, she resigned, and the White House said it was in the wake of a congressional report that found that Susan Ralston passed inside White House information to Jack Abramoff, who she worked for before she started working for Karl Rove. In addition, the congressional report found that Susan Ralston was the recipient of dozens of free tickets and sporting events, all in violation of government ethics rules. The Democrats are suggesting that the White House is simply trying to make Susan Ralston a scapegoat and take attention away from Karl Rove, because the congressional report also found that there were some 485 lobbying contacts between Jack Abramoff and his aides and White House officials. And questions about several White House officials other than Susan Ralston remain unanswered. Keith?
Rove ought to go hunting for lost wallets, David. He seems to luck out every time. MSNBC's David Schuster, as always, sir, great thanks for your efforts tonight. Have a good weekend.
You too.